Hello, my friends, and welcome to the very first episode of the Stubble Talk podcast. My name is Ben, and this is honestly something I have been waiting years to do. Stubble Talk, if this is the first time you have ever heard of it, is something that I created back in 2021 with the vision of changing the conversation, of starting the conversation, of getting people talking about mental health. This very first episode is just an introduction. It's for me to say hi, and it's for me to tell you a little bit about who I am, why I created Stubble Talk, and what the plan is moving forwards. This isn't going to be just a short term thing. This is going to be something that I want to see change culture, that change the environment, that changes the conversation. Like I said, my name is Ben, and I live in the beautiful city of Bath. I am 31. Jeez, it sounds like I'm making like a dating profile. I'm 31, and I have lived in Bath since 2019. I came to uni here, and for most of my life, since the age of about 13, I have really struggled with my mental health. At the age of 13, and this is why I say this is when my mental health problems started. I don't know if that is actually true, but I remember at 13 years old having my first suicidal thought. And the big thing that I didn't realize is that it wasn't normal to have thoughts like that struggling with mental health or feeling depressed or anxious wasn't normal. Like I said, I'm 31. So we're going back nearly 20 years. And lots of things have changed since then, but a lot of things have stayed the same. I lived most of my teenage years, actually, in fact, all of my teenage years and most of my early 20s, not knowing that I had a problem. And I believe that one of the reasons I didn't know that I had a problem is because no one was talking about this. We currently live in an age where it's more likely, if you are a man under the age of 50, that you'll die by suicide than you'll die by getting hit by a car or any other means. And that's so scary. And I was nearly, very, very nearly one of those numbers in that statistic. To go back a little bit, like I said, I struggled with my mental health most of my life and not known that what I was going through wasn't normal or even that I wasn't okay. I went to uni for 2 years in Bath Spa, did drama studies, completely the wrong thing for me. I loved the drama, but I didn't love the studies. And I did 2 years and then dropped out because I just hated it. I didn't enjoy it at all. And I moved back to my hometown, which is Taunton. And while I was there, I started working for Nando's, which is what I did for nearly 10 years, which is just insane when I think back to it. And when I joined Nando's, I very quickly started drinking and going out and making very bad choices and bad decisions and waking up with beer fear and not even knowing what I did the night before sometimes. This lifestyle that I had created for myself just was fueling my depression, my anxiety, my suicidal thoughts. But I suppose I was trying to fill a hole inside of me that I didn't know was there, to fix a problem that I didn't know that I was having. And when you're drunk, it feels like all your problems go away. In fact, they only go away when you can't remember them. And then they come back even harder the next day. And normally with more problems because of the things you did the night before. When you say it like that, it sounds really easy to just go, well, that sounds stupid. I should probably stop. But when you're in a cycle of doing stupid things and you're in a habit of going out 3 or 4 times a week and getting blackout drunk and just doing stupid stuff, you quite quickly get caught in your own cycle. And that's exactly what I did. I was doing this while looking for love in all of the wrong places and trying to feel, like I said, that hole that was inside of me, to feel that feeling of not feeling alone and not knowing what was going on in my head. And all of this time going through constant thoughts, sometimes daily or more than once a day, of not wanting to be here, not wanting to live this life, for things to feel a little bit easier, for things to feel better. I did this lifestyle for a while, and funny enough, things didn't really get better because I was in like a dark hole, I would describe it as. And well, when you're in a hole and you don't know you're in a hole, you just keep digging. And I just kept digging. And eventually I reached the bottom of that hole. I went to go open another Nando's, and so moved towns, left my family, left my friends, and I completely isolated myself. I carried on with my usual habits, and I definitely hit rock bottom. This was probably as low as I could go. I had a week off and did nothing. I barely left my bed. And any time that I'd spent alone was time spent in fear, time spent not wanting to be by myself. And it all reached this point where I just felt like I couldn't take it anymore. My head and my heart just hurt all the time. I felt constantly anxious. I felt so depressed. And it reached this point where I just went, I can't do this anymore. So I got in my car one night and, yeah, decided that this was going to be the end. I didn't think that anyone would miss me. I didn't feel like I had any purpose in this life. And I was going to try to find the most pain-free way to get out of it. I sat in my car and I just cried. No one knew where I was, what I was going through, these feelings and these thoughts that were in my head. And like I said, I just sat in my car and cried. And I sat in my car in this state, not wanting to do what I felt like I had to do. And then my phone rang. It was like 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Like I said, no one knew where I was. No one knew what I was going through. And it was just someone that I worked with who said, "Hey, this could sound strange, but I feel like something's up. Are you okay?" That phone call literally saved my life. That was the start of a massive change. It was the first time I questioned, is there more to life than this? I believe that what happened to me was divine intervention. There was no other way that I could explain it. The next day was the first day I ever actually spoke about my mental health. I think I was 28, 27, 28, and I'd gone nearly 15 years not knowing that I was struggling and never being able to talk about that I was struggling because I didn't know. This was the start of a whole new chapter for me. I started to have conversations with people who were very concerned about my mental health. I started to get some support from friends and family and started to share about what was going on. And I started to try to figure out what actually made me happy, why I was doing this life. So, in a bid to stop being sat alone all of the time, I got a second job as a Domino's delivery driver. And the funny thing is, this is one of the best things that has ever happened to me. I spent less time at home by myself. I just spent time driving around in my car, listening to music out in the fresh air of the summer sun. And I went, huh, yeah, this is all right. And that was then when I started to really realize that actually being outside, being in the sun, driving my car, listening to music are things that I enjoyed, things that made me feel better. And because I then started to feel better, I started to just do better. And I started to actually like research and read and try to figure out how I feel and even just be better. I've always been quite a stubborn person. I, at this point, said that I would never go on medication. I didn't talk to a professional or a doctor. I just tried to help myself. And it did work for a while. So what happened next is, so this was the end of 2019 that I then moved back to Bath. 3 months later, 4 months later, the dreaded Rona happened. I then got faced with what probably could have been my deepest and darkest fear of being completely alone. What's funny is actually the time of quarantine, I was furloughed from work because I worked in a restaurant, was actually one of the best things to have ever happened to me again. I spent so much time alone, obviously, and I really enjoyed it. I just spent time by myself, working on myself, listening to music, reading books, playing the Xbox, and it was great. I actually enjoyed it. And what's funny is I think if all of those things hadn't already happened to me, I don't know if I would have got through COVID, but I did. In 2020, after the end of the first lockdown, I moved from my one bedroom studio flat into a shared house. I decided I needed to be around some people. And a year later, 2021, I think it was August the 8th, I created Stubble Talk. After spending time processing how I felt and realizing that I'd spent so much time not knowing what was going on in my own head, and sadly seeing so many stories of people I knew, people I've worked with, friends go from this world, I just knew that something had to be done. And that's why and when I created Stubble Talk. And I know what you're thinking. Well, Ben, that was 3 years ago. What's happened since then? And well, there's something you need to know about me. I am a perfectionist. I really like to do things well. I put a lot of pressure on myself. My girlfriend would definitely be a testament to that. I was recording a podcast every single week. Well, actually, they weren't podcasts at this point. They were just vlogs, because that's exactly what this page used to be. You won't see any remnants of that anymore because I actually deleted them because I knew they could be better. And when I restarted this channel, I wanted to do a bit of a clean slate. So after doing like a short video every single week and chatting to people about mental health and starting this conversation in the circles I knew, things got quite exciting. I then recorded a podcast for BBC Radio 1 with Youngblood. If you don't know who Youngblood is, he is a musician. He's in his 20s, multi-million streams, world-renowned artist, I suppose. And I recorded a podcast all about Stubble Talk, all about men's mental health. And it was insane. It was crazy to think that I was then all of a sudden having a conversation with, I suppose, a celebrity about mental health and about my own mental health. And that was when my heart's desire to just record actual conversations with people about mental health really started. If you do want to listen to that podcast, you can find it on, I think, any streaming platform. If you just search the Youngblood podcast, I think I'm episode number 3. The title is literally Ben. Shortly after starting the podcast, however, I had a panic attack for the first time ever in my life. because I'd put so much pressure on myself. I'd started a website, I'd done merch, um, I was trying to collaborate with people. I was doing so many things. It was actually ridiculous because I put so much pressure on myself because I wanted this to go well. I wanted to change the conversation. I wanted to start the conversation and I wanted people to realize that they're not alone. That's my number one aim in all of this is that people realize that they're not alone, that what they're going through isn't because they're weird or because there's a problem with them. So many people experience mental health struggles, but we as a society don't talk about it enough. And that's what we need to change. So shortly after, in the summer of 2022, I took a break and Stubble Talk's just been sat in the back burner until a point where I was emotionally and physically ready to restart this again, which brings us to today. I am so excited to be doing this again. This is honestly my live stream to be able to do this, to try to change the conversation, to start the conversation, and hopefully help people realize that they are not alone, that there is so much more to life than the struggles going on in their own minds. The way that that's going to happen is I'm going to be doing podcasts, short videos, which you'll see in the form of reels on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and just having conversations with as many people as I can about mental health. And it's as simple as that, because I think the more conversations we can have as people, the better this current landscape is going to be. We live in a society where the waiting lists to see therapists for the NHS are years long, and it shouldn't be like that. There's not enough resources and support to help those people. And fundamentally, not enough people are talking about it. And that's what needs to change. My goal for Stubble Talk, and this is going to sound a little bit funny, is to be a platform that creates positive change. And when I was thinking about this before I said it, I was like, yeah, I suppose I want to be an influencer. And I feel like that goes against everything that I'm trying to achieve. I don't have a particularly high opinion of influencers. I think what they do is great for what they want to do. However, for me, an influencer is someone who's influencing positive change. And I don't know if a lot of influencers influence positive change. So that's what I want to do. I want to be an influencer who creates positive change in this world. And that starts by having conversations. If you've got this far, I'd just like to say thank you. Listening to this podcast honestly means the world to me. And in all honesty, there's some things I need from you moving forwards. To have a conversation requires more than one person. So what I need from you is to share this, to try and get this into the eyes of as many people as possible. Like I said, my goal is to create conversation, to get into the eyes and the ears of as many people as possible and make them realize that they are not alone. But I can't do that by myself. If you can like this page, follow me across all of social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of those things, and share. Because I believe if you share and try to create that conversation yourself, you don't know who that could potentially reach. I believe by sharing this video, and it could be watched by someone who is struggling, could potentially save a life. And that sounds a little bit crazy, but from my own experience, I believe if I'd seen one of these videos years ago, maybe I would have realized sooner that I wasn't okay. I would have got help sooner. and I would have never have reached rock bottom. Keep an eye out over the next few weeks. You're going to see, like I said, short form videos across all of our social media, and you're going to see more podcasts coming out. I've got some really exciting interviews lined up, and I can't wait for you to hear them. The aim of these podcasts is to have long form conversations with people about mental health, people who you think might not have even struggled with their mental health. But ultimately, everyone, every single day, has to have a battle with their own mental health. We all struggle with mental health challenges. Some might be so minor, but for some people, they're a lot larger. And we all have to manage that every day. Just to reiterate, thank you. Please share this. Help me get into as many eyes and ears as possible. And until next time, and my challenge at the end of every single one of these videos is to go out and start a conversation.